Everyone online has an opinion about generative AI, but in this moment, I do not care about the opinions of woke scold moralists nor tech bro losers. I just want to know, can generative AI be useful for TTRPG book production? And the answer is sometimes. Let's keep this entirely practical though. I only want to focus on how is AI going to affect the final outcome of this project and how is it going to affect our process in getting to that final outcome. We are putting aside all moral considerations and social implications. I've sectioned my opinion on AI into a separate video, so if you want to know how I feel about it, you can click on this video and find out. So here's a short list of how AI is useful in my workflows, and at the end I'll show you a project where I tried to lean on AI a bit more heavily, and I'll show you how it turned out. An AI chatbot is really useful in your vision board process. The vision board is the earliest stage in any creative project. It's when you explore your feelings to work out an idea, or explore an idea to work out your feelings about the idea. For me personally, I do my best thinking when there's something in opposition. I love having an argument or a conversation. It just activates my brain. If there's nobody around, I can use an AI chatbot to go back and forth with, and it does activate my neurons. Very helpful. AI can be super useful for generating more relevant lorem ipsum. Lorem ipsum, the purpose of it is placeholder text. You put it on your template so that you can see how the document's going to flow and how the words are going to look when they hit the page. So let me show you some examples, right? Here's how you might do your placeholder text. You go, we're going to have like a paragraph here, so I'll do a gibberish, and I don't want to keep typing. I'll do copy paste, and then there's that, and then there's that, then there's that. Does that look like the shape of words? You know what I mean? Is words so symmetrical and even like that? I don't think they usually are. So lorem ipsum is going to give us some gibberish filled with placeholder text. Look at that. It doesn't mean anything, but we have words of different length. We have paragraphs of different length. We have sentences of different length, and it varies with the same kind of galloping cadence as English. So if lorem ipsum is helpful because it is the shape of English, how helpful would it be to have something that's the shape of a TTRPG document? Hey, ChatGPT, just give me something. Here's an Adventurers League adventure. Great, and we have all the elements. It has contents, we have a paragraph for the introduction, we have a breakout box, we have 3 dot points as they normally do, and then we get into it. Now, I am not suggesting that you use this to write your adventure. I'm suggesting you use it to get the shape of your placeholder text. Then when you style up this nonsense, you'll have something that looks more like what your final document will look like when you're doing your templates. I have some warnings though. The reason that lorem ipsum is useful is that it is gibberish. If you are proofreading your final page and you read the text and it doesn't make any sense, you will go, oh, this is placeholder text and it is not meant to go to print. However, lorem ipsum goes to print all the time. Check your local newspaper every week. Over the course of 6 months, you will find some lorem ipsum in there somewhere, I guarantee it. Now, this issue is only going to be exacerbated by having placeholder text that looks like it's meant to go to print, like this TTRPG AI ipsum. So I am proposing an extra precaution here. Open up your document, highlight your text, go to your swatches, and color that text red or pink or something that you guarantee that when you see it, you will go, there is no way we are meant to be printing that color. And by the way, even with this precaution, pink text goes to print all the time. Check your pages. Check your pages. Another use, AI is really helpful for placeholder images. Because if you're in layout and you're struggling to visualize the final shape of this document, you might need something on your page other than a blank space. Here's the process. First thing, you've done all your dev work and you've written your document, you've got your copy, the raw text, and now you're putting it into your layout software. So, and then you style it all up, right? We've got these, we've got our headers and stuff, and it's great. But imagine we've got a space down here, right? So we go, okay, let's just portion that off. There we go. So we're going to have art of these dimensions here. I have a commissioning artist. I send the artist the dimensions of this box and say, please illustrate something for this. Here's your instructions. Now, while I'm waiting for the thumbnails or the rough drafts or something to come back from that artist, I think it would be appropriate to fill this with placeholder art, and that art could be AI. AI can be very useful for extending images. Let me show you what I mean. So here's the space I had on this page, right? I had about that much, okay? So I had a piece of stock art that I wanted to use. There it is. These guys kind of catching up to this dude and they're fighting in the forest. Cool piece of stock art. So if I want to fill that space that we had, let's do that. And then suddenly, in order to get it to where I need it to be, it's like there. And like we're cutting off his legs? That looks a bit dumb, doesn't it? Or alternatively, are we cutting off some of their heads? That's stupid as well. Because the shape this picture wants to be is in the original dimensions. It wants to be like that. And then suddenly I have all this space on the sides. I don't want that dead space there. I want the picture to be drawn in those corners. So I used the content aware fill in Photoshop, where it takes the available data from the image that you're using that you have a license to use, and then it kind of has a guess of what it thinks should go in the spaces you designate. Then I did some blurs, and I did some stamp tools, and I just kind of extended the image a little bit. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't look great, but it's not the focus of the image. The action shot is kind of here, and then I did like a motion blur everywhere else. So I made that image fit with AI. This last one is a little bit silly, but if you use AI in your project and you are vocal about it, you may get attention on your project. For example, have you heard of a game called Acts 2, ACKS, 2nd edition? I heard about this for the first time from a YouTube channel called The Basic Expert, and he was flipping through the book, giving a great preview, and also pointing out some of the technical errors in the AI artwork. From a marketing perspective, this means two things. Firstly, somebody who spends way too much money on RPG projects now knows about your book. That's fantastic. However, the only things I know about it were said by somebody who was pointing out the errors in the artwork that you generated with AI. Because there is a very active online community dedicated to dunking on AI. And when they dunk on you, well, people are talking about it. Whether that's a good thing, I don't know. Now you'll notice that at no point in those ideas that I suggest AI can generate your art for you or AI can help you write your thing. And that is because I did a test case. I had a document that I was working on called the Shipwreck Scramble minigame, and I used AI for a few sections of it. So let me talk about how that worked. This is a Dungeons & Dragons minigame that describes the players traversing across a tangle of shipwrecks, a shipwreck graveyard, if you will, and maybe finding some treasure along the way. Here's where I was up to when I brought AI into the project. I had already designed the actual game on a notepad, just with handwriting. I had prototyped the game by building it with blocks. I play tested it twice in 2 different campaigns with 2 different groups, and I commissioned a writer to write the actual copy of the document. This is done by Somnus Gray. Then I sectioned off 2 parts of the project that I wanted to dedicate to AI and see how it functioned within those boundaries. Those 2 parts are, for one, I have a list of 20 shipwrecks, right? And for each of the shipwrecks, I wanted it to generate a little limerick about how the ship sank. And then also, I had an art space. I have a half horizontal page on page 1, and I wanted to get art like this from AI. So first job, let's see how it did with the limericks. Here's what it came up with for how the Kobold Crusader sank. The Kobold Crusader set sail, with kobolds who squeaked without fail. They tunneled the hull, now that was a lull, she sank from the weight of their tail. Now look, this is a limerick. It is shaped like a limerick, but limericks are meant to be a little bit funny, a little bit naughty, a little bit bawdy, and this isn't really that. It doesn't even exactly make sense. It does have a joke in there. I like they tunneled the hull, because the idea of the kobold sinking their ship by digging is very, very funny. But then towards the end, it just kind of gives up and just gives these kind of placeholder rhymes. It sank from the weight of their tail? That doesn't make any sense. And all the limericks it generated for all of these were kind of this quality where it's like, yeah, but is that really your best? And I ended up just rewriting some of them. Here's what I did for the Kobold Crusader. The Kobold Crusader had heart, but the hull of the ship fell apart, held together by glue and an unruly crew who weren't altogether that smart, and I think that is better. That's better, even though it doesn't have that joke, that visual element of the kobold digging through the hull. I feel that this is more cohesive. Every line has a purpose and every line is pointing in the same direction. And that exact same thing happened with every single limerick. I would generate it with AI, I would put it on the page, and I would be dissatisfied. So I would apply a little bit of polish, a few corrections, and eventually end up rewriting the whole thing. And what happened was I started off by giving this task to AI because it wasn't really important. I didn't really care about it. But in the process of applying corrections, suddenly I started to care about that segment. And suddenly the AI slop was not good enough anymore. But I had a very different experience when I got AI to generate my art. And the difference is that when I see the AI doing a bad job at writing, I have a writing degree. I can fix that. But when it does a bad job at art, not only do I not have the skills to fix that, I don't have the critical eye or the training or like any kind of expert opinion about art. Sometimes I can't even recognize that it's bad. So let's look at the page. Here's the space we had, right? This horizontal half page. And I wanted to put a picture of a shipwreck here. So here's what we generated using the Shutterstock generator, right? And the reason I liked this is because it was bright and it was blue. Every piece of stock art that I looked at for a shipwreck was a little bit too dark and stormy and blacks and dark blues, but it has this like really bright spot and it has the kind of setting sun. But there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. Like, what's this guy down here? It looks like a tentacruel. What's going on with the mast? Why is the mast kind of like data moshed and dissolving, right? And I look at those errors and I recognize them. By the way, if you can draw, you're looking at this and seeing errors that I can't even see. But I look at these errors, the mast, the tentacruel, and I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't care what kind of image went here in the first place. And then when I put an image there, I don't care that there's errors in it. And the question that I'm left with, like, if I have content on my document that I'm selling to people who support me, who I'm really grateful for, if I have something I don't care about on the document, like, is that really worthwhile to them? Am I respecting them? Am I respecting the project? Because I love the project. Why would I bother including something in my document that I don't care about? And look, I'm glad I did this experiment because it totally informs my opinion here. If you are asking AI to complete an entire task for you, like write this whole paragraph or generate this whole picture, then it's only appropriate to do so for segments that you do not care about. However, that conflicts with my new opinion of, if you don't care about a section of your document, delete that section. And I had a last minute idea that is really, really frustrating. I wanted to round it out by getting the AI to write a limerick about this video concept. And it did a really good job, which is really annoying. There once was a writer who tried to let AI stand by their sides, but the parts they ignored made them feel kind of bored, so they tossed them or rewrote with pride. Hey, if you want to know my real opinions about the morals behind AI, about how I do not think it's immoral to use AI, then you can check out this video here. Also, I have a newsletter, start-a-quest.com. Check it out, it's great. All right, my friends, let's never talk about this again. I'll see you later.